Netflix is coming up with a Little House on the Prairie reboot. Apparently, from what we're reading, it's going to be based on the same book series. Um, it'll be kind of reimagined a little bit. So, I mean, you probably will get some of the same themes and the same storylines from the original Little House on the Prairie. But if you look at it, a lot of younger people today probably haven't seen the old show, and it's a way of bringing that back. I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by this. What do you think?
I support it. I think that I think that some stories are timeless and can be told for new generations and things. And I think that westerns are having a moment, particularly with a lot of the stuff coming out on the Paramount Network with Yellowstone and spinoffs of Yellowstone. I think people are into that sort of like that storytelling, and they're telling a lot of those. Some of them are like, we're telling stories from like the Old West and everything. Yellowstone, of course, is set in modern times. It's a modern Western, but they're telling some of those older stories too by, going back in time and featuring previous generations of the Dutton family. And I think people are into that right now. And, they did something similar not too long ago. Netflix did with a new version of Anne of Green Gables, which was actually pretty good. I thought, family and I watched that. It was a good thing to sit down and watch with my wife and my daughter. They enjoyed it. And it was something, I'd seen, I was familiar with the Anne of Green Gables story. I'd seen, some of the previous versions of that, but they hadn't. And, it was, it's a way to, like I said, it's a good story. You can tell it with a different cast, don't make too many changes to it. You don't want to offend the rabid fan base for those types of things. I don't know if there's a rabid Little House on the Prairie fan base, but I'm sure there are people that that grew up with the series and grew up with the books and things, and they're probably going to want something. They're going to want something specific out of it. They want something true, to it, and that doesn't modernize it in certain ways and things like that. But I think there's definitely room to tell these stories again. Like I said, some stories are timeless.
Well, and I was kind of hit or miss on the original show, watching it growing up. I guess the only thing, again, this is just Chris Pugh's opinion, how to make this great for Chris Pugh, for what that's worth. But I would like them to tell different stories. Like I don't want like necessarily a shot by shot remake. I mean, obviously, if it's the same family, you're going to get some of the same themes, but see if we can get different episodes out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, go back to. I mean, the way you do that is you go back to the books as the source. Yeah. You don't try to remake the other TV show. You go back to the source, go back to the books. You focus on some different things, maybe some different characters and things, tell some different stories. Because that's, the old series, they never told everything of those books. There's stuff that you could potentially still bring in, while still, mix in a little bit of new with the old. And, a lot of times that works.
Yeah, because you could, like, you'll still have, like, the family. You'll still have, like, the sister that lost her sight. I mean, I'm not saying totally redo the stories, but just have some different stuff. And I'll tell you, too, and, from what I recall of the series, and I know it was kind of controversial even back then, but it had some darker themes, and some people didn't like the darker themes, but I liked how it touched on some stuff that we're going through today. Like, there were some references to mental health issues, there were some other references, and I kind of like that, because I think sometimes we romanticize the olden days and we're like, oh no, that stuff ever happened, everything was more pure back then. No, stuff happened, and stuff that we may have a hard time talking about now, we really had a hard time talking about back then. So right. I love the idea that kind of talked about it. I know there's probably some fear of, what are they going to do since it's Netflix? They're going to do some different stuff. Well, let Netflix tell their story, because I'll be honest with you, 100 years ago or whenever the series first came out, there was some stuff going on. And I love the fact how it kind of attempted to tell the stories, and bravo to the original NBC series, because they kind of went on a limb that was kind of crazy for back then. I hope Netflix continues to kind of share those principles. I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. I mean, we tend to see things through a lens of what we've seen before, and about those stories, and they don't tell the whole story. There's like struggles that we're having. They're not unique to us. Previous generations have dealt with the same sort of thing. It's all part of the human experience. So I think there's ways to tell those stories in a way that makes them more relevant to today. I think that's okay. I think you probably don't want to go too far with that, but there's definitely a way to tell these stories in a way that makes sense. That we can sort of like see ourselves in these stories a little bit still, even though they're telling the stories of a family, from the 1800s or whatever. Like there's a way to tell a story that makes it relevant to us, and I think that's good. What do you think about, okay, if we're going down that road though, so let's what if they remade, for example, another Michael, Highway to Heaven. That was the one I watched with, the Little House on the Prairie star.
Look, well, here's the issue I have, and I know for a variety of reasons we don't want to get too much into politics, but let me reference this because it seems like politics and pop culture kind of ram in each other a little bit too much these days. I don't like the messaging saying that, Hollywood's so messed up because we're talking about this, that, and the other stuff. How dare they? It's horrible. Hollywood tells stories. And a lot of times Hollywood tries to give voice to some of the stuff happening in real everyday life. And even if something doesn't happen real to everyday life, you've got to go somewhere to tell a story. You know what I mean? And those stories aren't always going to be comfortable for everybody. It may not be what everybody's used to, but we're telling stories. Think about it as a kid when you picked up a book. Hey, if you read something you were uncomfortable with or something made you think, even if you didn't agree with, it's good. You understand something different. Well, here's what I don't like. The current, president is into this, we're too woke today. We're too into this different stuff. So Megyn Kelly, who ironically a couple years ago, her and Trump used to get in a lot of big, arguments about, politics and other stuff. She's went on this recent diatribe saying, what are they going to do to Little House on the Prairie? Is it going to become too woke? What's going on? What's Hollywood going to do to this? This is scary. This is bad. And, Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls Wilder on the show, she had a really good quote. The original series talked about racism, addiction, nativism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, rape, spousal abuse, and other woke topics. We've been there. We've done that, And I don't know, man. I get, and again, I don't want to get way too serious about this stuff. I just get frustrated where Hollywood's being attacked for political purposes that have nothing to do with anything. And you've got people that are just having no idea what the original series is like. It's unfortunate. I just get tired of it really quick.
Yeah. No, I don't tend to pay a lot of attention to that anymore. It's it's just kind of all noise and stuff, and I think people are going to enjoy it, people are going to not enjoy it, and I think that's okay in both cases. Sounds like something I probably would check out because, like I'm in that group that's watching Yellowstone and some of those other things. I get into some of those old stories, the Western stories and stuff. I think there is something, nostalgic, and sort of romantic about that period. There's some good stories to tell. I think I'll be interested in it, and other people won't be, and that's okay.
Well, and I just want to give a reminder. And again, where we are politically, it doesn't really matter. It's art, and Robert, how many streaming services do we have? How many different shows do we have right now? There is a billion options. You and I talk all the time. There's probably 10 or 15 shows that should be on our radar that we think about, but we don't have time to look at.
Yeah.
So if there's something out there that offends you, or something out there that you think, I don't know if my politics or whatever agree with it, that's fine. There's a million other things to go on there. Like Megyn Kelly went as far as to say, I'll ruin your show if you wokeify it. Don't watch it. You know what I mean? It's like,
you know.
Yeah, it's like
you don't have to ruin it for everybody else. You know, if you don't like something, you don't, that's fine. Then not like it. But you don't have to ruin it for the people that do. Like I've said here before, you literally, if you wanted to, you have the option to never watch the new version. And if you're such a devoted fan to the old one, you can find the old one on a streaming service and you can watch that instead. Just go back and watch that one. Like I said, I have neighbors here. I see, I've told you before, kind of creepily. I see that, like they're on the TV a lot because the TV, I'm in the backyard. I see what they're watching sometimes, and they watch some old TV, and I think that's, they probably have it set to like, for me and you, I remember it as like Nick at Night would have all these old shows and stuff like that, and you could just watch old TV shows. But now there's full streaming services with that and full networks and stuff that just show the older stuff. And if you want to live in that era, if you want to watch that type of, if that's what suits you, by all means, it takes, all kinds. There's so many options. Like you said, it's unlimited right now, the options that we have.
Oh, and there's so much stuff. And look, I like where Little House on the Prairie is. I'm intrigued about where the next Little House on the Prairie goes. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really watched Little House on the Prairie that much. And that doesn't mean, I just don't have time. So if I don't have time to watch shows I'm legitimately intrigued about, why would I even give a rip about stuff that I'm offended or upset about for any purpose at all? You know what I mean? I don't get that.
It's its own kind of theater, Chris. It's just people being theatrical. It's people like, like there are people that for whom Outrage is basically a business. Their business is outrage. That's what they deal in and stuff. And so they try to make other people outraged. And they hit on some of these pop cultural things and stuff like that. And it really doesn't have anything to do, it's not a serious thing. We got serious stuff going on in the world right now. We don't need people getting all upset and outraged over some Netflix Little House on the Prairie show or something. There's other stuff.
Even if, say, you and I were like, man, the only show we watch as kids was Little House on the Prairie, and we're really upset. So what? Then just watch the original Little House on the Prairie. It's not like we're taking out the original Little House on the Prairie so we can do a new version. The logic just doesn't make any sense to me at all.